They called it the Celestial Concord, a peace treaty inked with centuries of blood, and at the heart of it all sat Earth. The species everyone feared, but no one understood that the message came in the language of the stars, laced with ceremonial protocols and translated through 6 layers of artificial interpreters. A peace accord, they said, a true end to the age of devouring. 47 species, each clawed by war, each bearing scars from centuries of conquest, had agreed to stand down, to unify. And Earth, for the first time, was invited to the table. Council called it historic. Earth called it suspicious. Commander Grady Holt sat in silence aboard the UNS Blackthornne, staring at the holographic invitation as it flickered in the dark. His jaw was hard, his eyes harder. Behind the message, the council seal shimmered, an ancient star entwined with 7 planetary rings. Beneath it, the meeting location, Velixer, a world older than Earth's continents, long considered sacred. Ground for diplomacy and known only to a few as the site of a massacre Earth was never meant to survive. Holt remembered that too well. He had watched human diplomats disintegrate mid-speech on a previous council invitation. Watched their remains vanish in a burst of plasma that was written off as a reactor fault. There had been no justice, no apologies, no consequences. And now they wanted peace. The Blackthornne was no peace ship. It was Earth's contingency, a dreadnought built not to negotiate, but to endure. It carried stealth frigates along its flanks, railgun-tipped drones, and 6 orbital kinetic rods buried in its underbelly. Holt had ordered their final targeting protocols himself. If this was a trap, Earth would not die quietly. Dre stood beside him, arms crossed, voice low. There. Expecting flowers, she said. We brought fire instead, Holt replied. Dre was the quiet edge of a blade, calculating, uncheckable. She'd been with Holt since the fallback operation on Juno 3, where entire colonies vanished under diplomatic corrections. She'd seen what diplomacy really meant. Behind them, Colonel Rigg ran final weapons checks in the hangar deck. He was all fury molded into a walking tank, built more like a siege weapon than a man. His forearms bore tattoos of the dead names of outposts lost, friends gone without burial. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The delegation team boarded silently, carrying visible weapons in breach of council etiquette. Holt didn't care. He wasn't there to please them. He was there to remind them that Earth still breathed. As the Blackthornne dropped from warp, Velixer came into view. It was beautiful. Green atmospheres coiled around obsidian cliffs, and starlight danced across ancient stone domes. But beauty meant nothing. It was the kind of place where the walls smiled as they listened to your execution. As they entered orbit, Earth's encrypted signal caught something. Fragments, echoes, encrypted frequencies hidden in diplomatic channels. Not meant for them. They spoke of motion, of last-minute staging, of silence protocols. Holt listened to the pieces and felt the chill behind them. This wasn't peace. It was a lullaby sung before the knife, and still he stepped forward. The wind on Velixer didn't move the trees. It whispered through them like an echo trapped in ancient stone. As the Earth delegation disembarked, the air felt wrong, too clean, too still. It was the silence you heard before a war cry, the breath before a storm. The alien guards flanking the walkway wore expressions that weren't quite smiles. Their eyes tracked every movement like predators trained to play polite. Commander Holt noticed it all. The tilt of a scaled jaw too tense. The blink pattern of the Carex honor guard 3 beats too slow. Even the temperature in the landing zone felt off. Cooler than Velixer's orbit would suggest. Artificial. Controlled. The path to the grand chamber stretched before them, black stone inlaid with silver veins lined with statues of galactic unity. Every species was represented in marble. Every species except humanity. The message was subtle. Or maybe not. Dre walked at Holt's left, her stride steady, her eyes scanning the rooftops. She wore her exo-rig like a second skin, its internal sensors already tracing motion trails above. Rig flanked the rear, his heavy boots making dull thuds on the stone. He held a data slate, but his fingers flexed like he was itching for steel. There was no conversation. There didn't need to be. Ahead, a shimmering figure emerged from the ceremonial archtall, serpentine, gliding with elegance that felt designed. Ambassador Sereth of the Carex Consortium, master of formalities and covert assassinations, according to Earth intelligence. His voice slid like silk over glass. "Welcome, Commander Holt." A bold display. "Weapons at a peace summit?" Holt didn't stop walking. "You invited us to a place where 3 of our envoys were vaporized. We just remembered what happened the last time." Sereth's tongue flicked once in irritation. Old wounds should not dictate. "The future." Holt's reply was colder than the air. "They built the future." Inside the chamber, the architecture towered overhead impossibly high, carved from obsidian and glass, designed to humble. Bioluminescent panels cast a soft glow over the circular floor where the council would sit. Already, the other species had gathered. The Trisari floated in their containment tanks, the Davari coiled with mirrored scales, the Tolkari sat stone-faced and silent. 47 species, each armed with centuries of politics and deceit. Only Earth had come ready for war. A low chime signaled the beginning of the summit. The Grand High Voice entered, flanked by ceremonial guards in crimson. His body was long, thin, draped in layers of living silk. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Instead, every neural cum lit up. A direct psychic stream, unauthorized, invasive, and instantaneous. Holt's system screamed. Firewalls flared. Dre swore under her breath. Rig growled. "That's a breach." The stream carried words, but not one spoken aloud. A transmission. Ritual codes, locations, status updates. On the surface, it read like a schedule. But Holt knew encryption when he saw it. He ran a silent decryption loop in his retinal HUD. What emerged turned his blood cold. Kill switch primed. Human command in chamber. Strike in phase blue. Secure. Perimeter preemptive. Holt didn't hesitate. "Aboard diplomatic protocol," he said, voice low, subvocalized through comms. "Initiate contingency phase 3. Full combat readiness." Dre didn't ask questions. She activated the exo-rig's secondary power bank and flicked her safety off. Rig locked and loaded. The peace ceremony had begun. The trap was snapping shut. But Earth hadn't come to shake hands. They had come to bite back. The high voice opened his mouth to speak aloud this time. Velvet words filled the chamber. Let this summit begin. Let all hostility be set aside. Above them, hidden in the upper tiers of the dome, a faint hum started. Drones. Too quiet for most ears, but not for human tech. Holt's helmet picked them. Up, drone signatures overhead. Multiple. Dre's HUD flared. They're armed. Auto-targeting. We're the only species marked hostile. Rig stepped forward. Permission to remove the problem. "Not yet," Holt said. He watched the other delegates, their postures too relaxed, their grins too wide. They knew, every single one of them knew, this wasn't peace. It was a prelude to genocide. But Holt had one final move to make. Without looking up, he tapped a concealed console on the delegation platform. A pulse shot into orbit. Far above, the Blackthornne responded. Kinetic rods were unlocked, shields raised. Stealth corvettes repositioned. Down below, Holt stared at the high voice with iron in his voice. "If this is peace," he said, "then let's see how well your gods bleed." The lights didn't go out, they were cut. Surgically. Every bulb, every filament, every starlit arch over the grand chamber died in a synchronized blink, as if some ancient god had shut its eyes. Then came the silence. It lasted just under a Thadzingtrum god had shut its eyes. Then came the silence. It lasted just under a Tzadot. It lasted just under a Asindiventid god had shut its eyes. Second, but in that heartbeat, Commander Grady Holt felt time stretch, felt gravity shift, felt history lean forward to watch. The plasma fire came next. A dozen drone-mounted weapons hidden in the sacred rafters began their work. Bolts of searing blue ripped through the air like angry comets, each programmed to burn human signatures out of existence. The blast struck the Earth delegation's platform first, where diplomatic banners had hung in compliance with the Council's decorum. They caught fire. Holt did in single quotes he was already moving. Down. He barked, voice slicing through the chaos. Like a steel command, Dre slammed her exoshield into place, the projection flaring around her like a rising fortress. Rig hauled a younger tech behind cover, his kinetic cannon already hot and humming. Rear Admiral Grant, never without his pistols, drew them mid-roll and dropped a drone before it could get off a second shot. Alien delegates scattered, though not in fear. In formation. The Trisari levitated calmly behind a shield wall. The Carracks slithered behind stone statues, their personal guard already flanking to encircle the Earth team. The Council had prepared, but Earth had prepared more. Above them, deep in orbit, the UNS Blackthornne received the silent code Holt had transmitted seconds earlier. Earth's final contingency ignited. 6 orbital rod solid tungsten cylinders, the size of submarines detached from the dreadnought's underbelly. They didn't hum, they didn't glow, they didn't warn. They simply fell. Not weapons in the traditional sense, but righteous judgment shaped by gravity and fury. Each one bore no explosive, no guidance system, just velocity, mass, and the physotin mass and the full wrath of a species that remembered every betrayal. The first rod struck Velixir's southern military base, 5 kilometers from the summit. It didn't just flatten it, it erased it. Shock waves tore across the planet's surface like rolling. Thunder made flesh. The sky lit orange. Towers collapsed. A wall of dirt and fire climbed miles high. The alien reinforcements waiting in the shadows never even left their hangars. Back in the Grand Chamber, Holt didn't flinch. He keyed his HUD, marked 2 snipers perched above the eastern arch, and sent the data to Dre. She didn't hesitate. Her rig's shoulder-mounted cannon pivoted and fired. Twin concussive rounds punched through stone and steel, silencing the threat in less than a second. Flanks. Rig called out, dragging his heavy bulk into a forward push. He moved like a tank, clearing cover with close-quarters brutality. One Carrack's diplomat, foolish enough to draw a sidearm, ended up as a smear beneath Rig's boot. The chamber transformed from a place of peace to a kill box. And the humans were the only ones who'd known it all along. From the far balcony, Rear Admiral Grant emerged with 2 squads of Earth Marines, their armor matte black, their visors blood red. No slogans, no war cries. Just precise, methodical. Fire. They tore through the rafters, eliminating drones, sentries, and the Council's hidden assassins in under a minute. Chamber breach confirmed, Grant called out through the comms. Room secured in 90 seconds. Holt ducked behind a scorched column, checking his feed. We hold this ground. This is no longer a summit. It's a message. Dre dropped beside him, breath steady, her shield cracked but still holding. The whole galaxy's watching. The stream's live. Good, Holt said. Let them see what peace bought us. A Carrack's delegate crawled through debris near the far wall, whimpering through broken fangs. Holt rose slowly, crossed the room, and stared down at the creature. "We invited you here to talk," the Carrax wheezed, clutching a bleeding arm. "No." Holt corrected him coldly. "You invited us here to die. And now you get to explain to your gods why we didn't." He raised his pulse rifle and fired once. The bolt ended the whimpering. Across the summit, screams echoed alien fear, not of death, but of humans. Because the Council's trap had failed. Because the youngest species in the room had seen it coming. Because Earth hadn't brought hope. Or diplomacy. It had brought vengeance. Riggs stepped over crushed marble, checking a bloodied datapad. "Commander, we've got a trail. Back corridor. High-value target fleeing." "The high voice," Holt muttered. "Of course he runs." "Want him alive?" Dre asked, her tone sharp and ready. "No," Holt said. "I want him cornered." They moved as one an execution squad with a singular goal. This wasn't about peace anymore. It never was, and as the second rod struck Velixer's orbital shipyard, sending a ring of fire curling through the upper sky, Commander Holt didn't look back, because Earth had finally spoken, and the galaxy was listening. ChatGPT said, smoke still rose from Velixer's bones. Where once stood marble halls of diplomacy, only ash remained. Burned treaties fluttered like dead leaves, and shards of obsidian statues crunched beneath earth boots. Above the shattered skyline, the UNS Blackthornne held orbit like a judgment, unlifted, scarred, but sovereign. Its kinetic launch bays still cooling from the assault that had turned peace into prophecy. Commander Grady Holt stood on the edge of the ruined council dais, helmet at his hip, rifle at his side, eyes unblinking as footage poured across every channel. Not just to Earth, not just to its colonies, but to every system that had whispered Earth's name with disdain or fear. The final shot of the stream was simple. A human commander, blood on his armor, standing amid alien ruin. He didn't speak. The image did enough. A week later, the retaliation came. 3 Council fleets stripped from neighboring sectors and hastily reinforced dropped into Earth-controlled space. Their goal wasn't victory. It was spectacle. They believed Earth would panic, that humans would call back their ships, retreat to defensive stations, beg for mercy. They believed Earth still cared about the illusion of negotiation. They believed wrong. The first fleet reached Carey's station. It never made contact. 30 minutes before arrival, it was intercepted by the UNS Red Vulture, a ship built for one purpose: untraceable dismantlement. No warning shots. No posturing. Just results. Captain Shaw, former cyber warfare specialist turned ghost commander, activated her override codes. The enemy fleet's comms collapsed. Then its targeting systems failed. Then its life support began to cycle, randomly venting oxygen into deep space in controlled bursts, frying fusion cores mid-ignition, turning proud warships into floating crypts. 3 cruisers drifted into the gravity well of a local star. 2 others exploded from cascading overloads triggered by invisible malware. The rest fled. The only signal they received as they escaped was short. 4 words. This is only response. On Earth, the footage broke everything. News anchors choked on silence. Alien embassies shuddered. Treaties collapsed in on themselves. The old order had gambled on Earth's civility. What they found was something colder. Within hours, something new began to appear across human channels, encrypted at first, then copied, shared, and whispered like a ghost story with teeth. The lists. A cascade of names, thousands at first, then tens of thousands. Each entry paired with a role, a title, and a sentence. Ambassador Kryl Cern funded 3 anti-human gene programs. Governor Ventura authorized civilian raids on Mars Colony Delta. General Mrak, designed containment algorithms for neural disruption. The Council had its architects. And Earth had a ledger. The first name to fall was Taval, the Axion trade envoy who had masqueraded as a peace advocate. He'd lived in opulence aboard a glass spire above the neutral world of Eltrix Prime, shielded by his own arrogance and a dozen diplomatic shields. Holt didn't send a fleet. He didn't even send a strike team. He went himself, clad in civilian. Fabric, no rank visible, no insignia. Holt walked into the tower as a man whose face the galaxy still didn't fully understand. No security systems pinged him. He'd modified his biosignature years ago. Inside, the opulence sickened him gardens grown in synthetic sunlight, human servants tending flora native to Earth as a sign of cultural harmony. When Holt reached the top, Taval didn't flinch. He turned slowly from his window, crystalline, goblet in hand. "I suppose you're here for theater," he said. "Let me guess, execution with a message?" "No," Holt said. He stepped forward. No speech, no warning. Just a blade surgically embedded under his sleeve, now buried in the alien's spine. Taval fell. Holt leaned close. "You watched Helen burn. You watched our people choke on the virus your credits paid for. You wore their deaths like a diplomatic medal." Fell tried to speak, but the blood in his throat silenced him. Holt twisted the blade once, then let go. By the time he reached the shuttle dock, the assassination was already viral. A perfect angle. No edits, no filter. Just a clean kill. Across the stars, the message spread. No one is forgotten. The next week, 2 more fell. One was found drifting in deep space, frozen, with "We Remember" carved into the escape pod window. The other was executed mid-transmission when a neural uplink was hijacked and reverse-looped into a cerebral meltdown. The Council called them terrorists, but deep down, they knew the truth. This wasn't a rogue squad. This was systemic, approved, sanctioned. Earth had stopped pretending to be part of their empire. It was something else now. It was correction, made flesh. Inside the war room aboard the Blackthornne, Holt stood before a floating interface. More names, more crimes. Dre entered, eyes sharp, holding a slate with the next profile. "You're not going to like this," she said. "Try me." She passed him the slate. Holt read the name. Director Damon Rohr, Earth origin, Blue Zone clearance, Strategic Defense Oversight, Suspected Council asset, confirmed traitor. Silence. Dropped like a hammer. Holt's jaw tightened. He was in every war meeting. He delayed our retaliation schedules. He rerouted 3 fleet deployments. Dre nodded. He signed off on every orbital delay during the Helith blockade. Cost us 2,000 troops. "And he never left Earth," Holt said quietly. Riggs stepped forward, eyes already dark. "Then we bring this home." Holt didn't speak again. He simply turned to the ship's AI. Set course. Earth orbit. Blue zone drop. For the first time since the war began, Earth wasn't just hunting aliens. It was cleaning its own blood. The UNS Blackthornne broke Earth orbit without ceremony. No trumpets, no announcements, no official welcome. It entered the upper atmosphere like a shadow returned to its roots, its hull black as burned metal, engines cooled to a silent drift. Every satellite around Earth registered its approach, but none dared challenge it. Not because of clearance codes, because they knew who was on board. Commander Grady Holt stood alone in the lower launch bay, dressed in civilian uniform gray. Tunic, carbon thread coat, and boots thick with lunar dust. No armor, no rifle. Just the weight of judgment carried in his shoulders and the blood memory of 1,000 graves carved into his expression. He entered behind him. Quiet, carrying a small data cube tucked beneath her arm. "You don't have to do this yourself," she said. I do, Holt answered. He was Earthborn. He served the old fleets. People still believe in him. They won't when they see the truth. She paused. Some will refuse to see it even then. Holt turned, eyes cold. Then they'll burn with him. The drop shuttle disengaged silently. It bore no military insignia, no weapon pods, just a false transponder tag identifying it as a logistics review vessel. It passed through Blue Zone security without friction. Director Damon Rohr had signed those protocols himself. Betrayal begins with trust. Blue Zone Earth's crown jewel. Floating above the decayed bones of a dozen dead cities, it was everything the galaxy thought humanity had become: polished, peaceful, perfect. Trees lined marble causeways. Sunlight was filtered for warmth, not defense. Artificial skies bore no scars. But Holt saw it for what it was: a sanctuary built on buried screams. Tower 7 loomed ahead, all glass and gold alloy, its summit reaching into the artificial sky like a chalice meant to catch the galaxy's tears. Rohr's office was at the top. Of course it was. They entered through a private elevator that Dre cracked in under 5 seconds. No alarms, no resistance. Just a smooth ascent through 60 stories of peace bought with blood dot at the final floor. Holt stepped off alone. Dre waited in the elevator with combs open and her sidearm drawn. The doors hissed closed behind him. Rohr's office was bathed in sunlight, floor-to-ceiling windows framing a panoramic view of a planet pretending it had healed. Polished surfaces gleamed. Transparent data panels flickered above his desk. And behind it, Director Damon Rohr sat in a crisp Navy suit, hands folded, smile calm. "Holt," he said warmly. "I was wondering when you'd get here. You knew?" Holt asked. "Of course. You survived Velixer. I had a 53% certainty you'd come back for me." "Only 53? You've become less predictable." Rohr leaned back. "I see that as progress." Holt stepped forward slowly, hands relaxed, but every inch of his body radiating pressure. "You sold us." "I preserved us," Rohr replied. "You delayed deployments. You blocked orbital retaliation. You fed fleet movement data to the Council. To avoid annihilation," Rohr snapped. "Every time we struck back, the Council tightened the noose. You think they wouldn't have glassed our colonies if I hadn't given them something to work with?" "They did it anyway," Holt growled. Rohr stood, his smile gone. "You think war wins itself? That fire and defiance would save Earth? I kept us alive. I held the blade at bay while you played the righteous soldier." Holt's voice dropped to a whisper. "No, you kept Earth collared. And when they decided to gut us, you held the leash." Rohr stepped from behind the desk. No weapons. Just words. "You're going to shoot me, and what? Declare yourself savior? You'll collapse what unity we have left. You'll fracture Earth in half. I'm not here for politics," Holt said. He drew a compact slug pistol, small, quiet, precise. "I'm here to cut the rot." Rohr didn't flinch. "You'll make me a martyr. You're not important enough." He fired once. The slug tore through Rohr's chest. The director staggered, eyes wide, blood already staining his suit. He collapsed onto the polished floor with a sound far too small for a Traitor.dr he entered. Seconds later, checked the pulse, and nodded. "Dead. Scrubbed the logs, wiped the cameras." "I already did." Holt looked down at the body for a moment, not with hatred, not with regret. Just the cold recognition of what had to be done. "File the report," he said. "Cardiac failure, died in his sleep." "And the truth?" He looked out the window at the artificial sky. Let the stars write that part. 2 days later, the news broke. Director Damon Rohr, Earth's chief of strategic defense oversight, passed away peacefully in his sleep. A hero of the Great Collapse. An architect of stability. A patriot. The public grieved. The council panicked. But in the dark forums of off-grid net streams, a different version spread, a raw vid of Holt walking out of the tower alone. A single line of text burned beneath the footage. We cut the leash. From the outer systems to the last refugee station in orbit around Saturn, humans whispered the truth to each other. Roar was dead. And Earth was clean. The stars over Earth didn't twinkle anymore, they pulsed. Faint and cold, like the aftershocks of a heart that had forgotten how to beat. In the weeks since Director Roar's quiet death, the galaxy had convulsed. Treaties dissolved in silence. Council embassies fell into shadow. Entire systems that once praised diplomacy now buried their flags in sand, bracing for what came next. Everyone understood something vital had shifted, not in words, but in instinct. Earth was no longer tolerating betrayal. It was erasing it, and there were still names on the list. Commander Grady Holt stood alone in the command deck of the UNS Blackthornne, a cold ghost of a man carved from purpose and silence. The screens around him glowed with intercepted comms, decrypted flight paths, and biotagged threat profiles. Most had been crossed out, some in red, some in gray. Only one remained, the architect. They called the Warden species, unknown. Location, unlisted. Image, absent. Only rumors remained. A shadow in council intelligence. A voice in the original gene program. The one who had written the code meant to sterilize humanity's future. If Roar had been the leash, the Warden was. The cage.dre stepped into the chamber, eyes sharp. We have a match. Holt turned. Where? She brought up a map, three-dimensional, hollow, silent. A star system no longer registered in modern charts. A dead zone past the outer brink. No habitable planets. No active signals. Nothing but wreckage and forgotten. Whispers. But beneath the ice belt of a fractured moon, a low-power beacon pulsed. This was buried under 4 layers of decoy traffic, Dre said. It's built like a vault, radiation shielding, subsurface habitat, deep signal masking. Only one life form detected. The Warden, Holt muttered. Everything points to it. Energy signatures match known council encryption used for black site projects. No diplomatic code. No planetary ID. Rig entered next, fully armored, shotgun magnetized to his back. No guards? No fleets? That smells wrong. It's not a fortress, Dre replied. It's a confession booth. He wants to be found. Holt nodded slowly. Set a course. We go alone, sir? Rig asked. No fleet, no dreadnought cover. No public strike. This one isn't for show. This is for the dead. The UNS Blackthornne drifted through the remains of a forgotten war. Dead ships, shattered colonies, and gravity-warped rock fields passed like broken bones around a neutron star pulsing like a dying god. And there, embedded in the crust of a moon that had no name, was the vault. No locks, no turrets. Just a single signal and a quiet invitation. Holt, Dre, and Rig descended in silence. No banners. No armor decals. Just weapons and purpose. The vault door opened without a touch. Inside, white light. Circular chamber. No furniture. No machinery. Just one man, or something close to it. He sat cross-legged in the center of the room, skin pale. Eyes hollow, clothed in a thin interface suit that shimmered with data. The air smelled of ozone and dust. Holt stepped forward, but said nothing. You came, the man said softly. His voice was human, but older than any age should allow. It wasn't weakness. It was exhaustion. You're the Warden, Holt said. The man nodded. That's what they called me. I was never a jailer, just a designer of limits, of fail-safes. Rig's voice was gravel. You designed our extinction. The Warden didn't flinch. I ran the simulations. Watched the trends. You weren't going to become part of the galaxy. You were going to consume it. Faster, smarter, angrier. The Council didn't understand it, but I did. I saw the pattern in your evolution. We survived, Holt. That's not a crime. No, the Warden said. But it's a threat. The only way to contain humanity was to make you think you were being embraced. Diplomacy was the cage. Peace was the sedative. Roar kept the leash tight. I designed the box. Dre took a step forward, sidearm already glowing. We're not a Fadana. Virus. No, the Warden said, his voice calm. You're the cure the galaxy was too weak to accept. He gestured to a panel that flickered to life behind him. On it pulsed a single command. Echo Protocol. Activate, purge. What's that? Rig asked. A genetic erasure pulse, the Warden replied. If I die, it triggers a galaxy-wide broadcast. Deletes all human biometric records. Flags your DNA as non-existent. Every medical system, every database, every planetary registry gone. You'll become ghosts. The galaxy will forget you ever lived. Holt stared at him. And you're telling us this why? Because I don't want to pull the trigger. I want to be wrong. I want to believe there's something in your species. Other than vengeance. Holt walked to the panel, stared at the blinking options. His hand hovered then he pressed purge. The console hissed. A low whine filled the room. Not a weapon, a deletion. The protocol burned itself out, code disintegrating into harmless static. Echo Protocol. Neutralized. The Warden's breath caught. You? Destroyed it. We don't erase our enemies, Holt said quietly. We bury them. And then he drew his pistol. The Warden stood for the first time. No words, just a nod of understanding that the shot was clean. Between the eyes, the man who built Earth's cage crumpled to the floor like the last lie finally told. From orbit, the Blackthornne fired once. The vault didn't explode in fire. It folded and imploded, the way old memories collapse when no one tells the story again. Holt sat in silence as the debris scattered into the void. Dre beside him. Rig at his back. The list was complete, but the war wasn't over. Because as the stars glowed outside the viewport, Holt whispered what they all felt. They'll come again. Dre looked at him. For revenge? No, Holt said, standing. They'll come to beg. The dead didn't speak, but the galaxy was listening. In the wake of the Warden's execution, a silence spread across the stars, not the quiet of peace, but of realization. The last architect of Earth's extermination was gone. His vault lay in molten ruin, his protocol erased, his secrets broadcast across every unsecured channel in known space. Earth hadn't just survived, that had redefined the rules, but war. True war never ends with silence. It ends when the last lie has been drowned, and the last hand that held the knife is shattered beyond memory. And one name still remained. Not on any public list. Not in Holt's war room displays or the encrypted tactical rosters. This name wasn't on a screen. It was on Earth. The final architect was never alien, never distant. It was a legacy, buried deep within the bastion of power the architects themselves had trusted most, humanity's own upper echelon. The remnants of the pre-war corporate dynasties, the boardrooms that traded Earth's pain for influence, cloaked in neutrality while funding the very councils that plotted Earth's erasure, had found it buried inside the Warden's data fragments. A name woven between corporate logs, dark fleet shipments, and modified transport manifests. No Aya had flagged it. No system had seen the pattern. But Holt did. Helix Counselor Arden Volen. Billionaire. Visionary. Savior of Earth's post-collapse. Food systems. Silent partner of Earth Command Civil Reintegration Program. Holder of a private orbital fortress outside Earth jurisdiction. He hadn't tried to hide. because Valen hadn't betrayed humanity in secret. He did it in policy. In the high towers of Earth's last untouched continent, Terran Zone Alpha, Valen had lobbied for integration with Council economy lines. He had funded vote blocks that delayed retaliation. He had advised restraint while the colonies bled. And through shell companies and buried trust funds, he had purchased entire strike contracts against off-world refugee routes, all in the name of long-term stability. Now, his fortress glowed like a crown above Earth's atmosphere, glass and steel shaped like a monument to human arrogance, guarded by private fleets paid in silence and shadows. And Holt was coming. The UNS Blackthornne re-entered Earth's orbit without a broadcast. Its transponder was silent. Its escort ships cloaked. This time, there were no surgical strikes, no negotiations, no speeches. This was personal. Holt, Dre, Rig, and Grant loaded onto a single black shuttle, the Revenant. No flag, no signature. Just teeth. They punched through Valen's perimeter in 30 seconds. Anti-air defenses turned, registered, locked, and never fired. They'd been fed a false override by Earth's last loyal II cluster, silent resistance born from the families of those who had died on Helen, Mars, Felixer. The shuttle landed on the main deck of the fortress with a screech of scorched metal. Holt walked out first, coat whipping in the synthetic wind. His boots echoed across marble imported from the shattered moons of the Tri-Sari. No one stopped him. Valen waited at the center, seated beneath a towering statue of his own likeness, arms raised as if embracing the heavens. "You've come a long way, Commander Holt," he said, sipping from a diamond-plated glass. "I trust the Warden was disappointing." "He talked too much," Holt answered, his voice ice. Valen smiled. "You think I betrayed Earth, but I saved it. I gave the Council just enough compliance to spare the homeworld. You don't know how close they came to sterilizing the surface." "I know exactly how close," Holt said. "I buried every architect who made sure we got there. And yet here I am." "No." Holt stepped forward. "Here you end." Dre and Rig moved to flank the platform. Valen rose, calm and smooth. "You need me. I have connections. Influence. You kill me, and you lose the financial arteries. Keeping Earth breathing." "Earth doesn't need blood from a parasite," Dre snapped. Valen's eyes narrowed. "You're just killers now. That's all you are." "No," Holt said. "We're memory. We remember every colony you ignored, every vote you rigged, every strike you outsourced while pretending to pray." He drew his sidearm and pointed it squarely at Valen's chest. Valen opened his mouth to speak, but Holt had no room left for speeches. The shot echoed like thunder. Valen dropped, a smear of blood against his own monument. Holt holstered the weapon, turned, and walked away. Behind him, Rig activated the microcharges planted in the statue's base. The likeness cracked, splintered, and collapsed, falling atop the body of the man who had once owned Earth's fate. Back aboard the Blackthornne, the crew watched as the orbital fortress dissolved in a controlled demolition broadcast to every colony, every ship, every terminal. The caption below the feed was simple: "No more kings." Weeks passed, then months, but something had changed. The Council was gone. Its core species splintered, its old members hunted or hiding. Earth didn't rebuild embassies. It didn't ask for permission. It opened alliances on its terms with those who had never raised a weapon, who had never funded genocide. Trade opened in the ashes. But this time, Earth didn't bring diplomats. It brought veterans. A new order rose, not built on conquest, but on consequence. And Commander Holt, now a name burned into the fabric of galactic memory, walked quietly through the halls of the rebuilt Earth Command. He didn't speak at rallies. He didn't run for office. He trained the next generation. He taught them not to forget, not to flinch, not to kneel. and one night, Dre stood beside him on a quiet overlook above the northern edge of Earth's skies, where the auroras still danced like they hadn't seen fire. "They're afraid," she said softly, "even now." "They should be," Holt said, "even if they come again." He looked up. The stars stared back, cold and endless. "Then they'll learn," he said, "that you don't cage fire twice." He turned to leave, boots crunching against the frostbitten stone. Behind him, the earth turned slowly under the weight of history. Above him, the galaxy whispered the name of the species that refused to die quiet. And far beyond, in the dark corners where new threats stirred, they asked a single question with trembling voices. What happens when humanity is the one writing the piece?